So I saw on Twitter a lot of people are kind of confused on how is it possible that Elon can buy 100% of Twitter stock, especially if they refuse to sell it to him. Well, I'm going to answer that question today for you. See, what a lot of these users with a hammer and sickle in their bio don't realize is that we actually live in a democracy and not a. I also saw some really stupid takes on there, which was one guy saying that he wanted to buy up as many shares as possible and then not sell it for anything under a certain price that he did marks as fair value or anything like that. And yeah, that's not how any of that works. There's no other way for me to put this, and I know it's hard for people who dislike me and very easy for those who steal content from me to not understand that all I'm doing is reading the damn rules of the game. And in those rules, it also says that when you buy these shares onto your account, you do not own those shares. You're merely the beneficiary. Listen, whether you knew about the beneficiary thing or not, that's fine. But if you refuse to look it up, I really don't think you should be playing the stock market or touching anything at all related to it because, like, I can't be Jake from State Farm and just magically appear to give you a lecture whenever you sing my jingle on demand to lecture you on topics such as this, especially to the level of the nuance that you need to understand. A lot of us content creators, and that includes the news and so forth, are mainly reactionary to things like this. We talk about it because it's, relevant within the news and the current times and everything, but we don't have the time to cover all these critical nuances and stuff like that. And the only reason I know about this and the beneficiary thing is because I read everything when I signed up with my brokerage and everything. Anytime I sign something, I read it. And I encourage you to at least look it up and at least read anything that you sign before actually signing it. Like, there's a lot of stuff that gets slid into these contracts that you don't even know about. Anyways, moving on. I also see a lot of Twitter users spend so much time arguing about democracy, but they don't understand the basics of democracy, which is something like voting. You and I both understand that when one side gets at least 51% of the votes, they've won. And yet, this is such a foreign concept for these people with a hammer and sickle in their bios. So some recent developments happened where Elon isn't exactly the biggest shareholder anymore. And in fact, it's actually Vanguard now, which raised its stake from 8.8% to 10.3%. And Musk said he's not really sure if his takeover bid would be successful and so forth. Now, this raises some interesting questions for me, and mainly because Vanguard was primarily synonymous with retirement funds, fixed income, etc., right? Not particularly with speculative growth stocks. As far as I know, I mean, based on their products from what I've seen, I could be wrong, and there could be like a floor of hotshot speculative traders out there, but that's not what they're known for. And that's why this is so strange. So that begs the question, why is it that Elon wants to purchase Twitter? If you ask the Twitter crowd, it's because he wants to control it so he can never get banned for whatever he says. If you ask the news crowd, it's because he wants to subvert democracy, insert dangerous ideas, and control what people think. Why should we only listen to you? Like, really, dog? But if they actually asked him, which he's already told everybody, it's because he wants to restore free speech on the platform. And honestly, for those who are cognizant, who have used it from early back in the day compared to today, don't act like Twitter's fair and unbiased right now. The funny part about this is that we can learn a lot from history, and this has actually happened in the past. Not a lot of people know about this, so I'm going to tell you right now. And if you want that story, you're going to have to be subscribed to the Patreon, so, I mean, not much I can do about that. Now, I'm not old enough to say I lived through the era of hostile takeovers, but I never thought I would see a poison pill strat either. And what it is basically they're going to print more shares and sell it at a discount, which ergo would actually stop Musk from getting it because every time they print, their percentage goes down and so forth, so he had to keep buying more and he'll eventually run out of money. And this is all ironic because if you held shares before this, you're basically getting it devalued through this dilution. And not only that, these institutions that hold people's retirements, possibly your retirement or whatever, are burning your investments on this. And the question is, for what? A couple thoughts come to my mind. First one being, again, I don't know enough about M&A or corporate structure, but as far as I can tell, for something like this to happen, they have to bring this to a vote on the board. And the board has to vote in something to be tabled and then vote on it yes or no. And they could just choose not to vote on this whatsoever. They could just ignore it, right? So that's one thing. And the second thing is, I see the words fiduciary duty being thrown out to the shareholders and so forth. Last I checked, a lot of these board members are not fiduciaries. They're not working in the finance field, selling you retirement fund and talking about like these products here and there or whatever, right? they kind of get to do what they want if they, as long as they think it's good for the company. And the only way, as far as I can tell, to actually remove them from the board is either to have, I don't know, a huge scandal or to vote them out during the annual meetings. One other add-on I want to put onto the fiduciary duty thing is I saw a lot of people talk about lawsuits, and honestly, I'm not saying I'm a legal expert, but I've seen a lot of the articles talking about lawsuits and stuff like that, and they throw out terms like substantial financial loss, but they never define that. What constitutes a substantial financial loss? Is it 30%, 50%, 90%? What is it? And on top of this, most of the average investors trying to get in on this thing and say that they had a substantial financial loss, um, the minimum is usually, at least from what I've seen, is at least $25,000. That's 2 5 and then 3 zeros afterwards. I don't think a lot of the normal people have that type of money invested in Twitter. I could be wrong, but most of them that I would assume that has that or more invested in Twitter are Twitter employees who get stock comp or whatever, right? And I would say, based on what I've read before, I don't think a lot of them are really in favor of Elon becoming their new boss. I feel like I should leave you with the question. And first one being, why is it that these companies whose sole goal is to make as much money as possible as fast as possible are refusing a 30 to 50% premium on whatever the dead share price it was before, what, $30? But even worse, they're doubling down by wanting to dilute the shares. And honestly, I don't think you need a Bloomberg terminal to tell you that Twitter's losing the social media battle to, like, say, TikTok, for example. And they're probably, in my opinion, about 1 to 2 generations out from losing a majority of their user base. But that's just what I think. And just remember, just because you're a day trader doesn't mean you have to trade every single day.